think it might be under my either coaching examples or mindset, talking about soul connections and life's connections. This is an example of life's connections, but it's also about, it's like every time it's like, wow, like that was just rad. That like, whether it's like something that I've said or thought, and it happens, like the detail. Okay, so I will tell you. So I sat down next to somebody at the restaurant bar, and it was the only chair right there. Happened to sit down, and I sat down next to a guy who basically said, once we started getting talking on the new esthetician, blah blah blah. He said, he started asking me, or we were started talking about the facial thing, and he said he's been wanting a facial for 40 some years. And that morning he woke up and he was thinking about that, how he wanted a facial. And I happened to sit down. So we started talking, and I don't really know how it began. I think it started getting into like where we grew up and things like that. And the East Coast came up, and I was like, when people ask me where I'm from on the East Coast, I generally don't say the city name just because it's so small. You wouldn't really know about it. I don't even know what the population was, but not very much. Like, we didn't even have a stoplight. I think the town I'm in now is smaller than it was, but we didn't have a stoplight. We had like just a couple of businesses. And so anyway, it's called Stewartstown. And it's about an hour. I would always say it's an hour from Lancaster. I always say it wrong. Lancaster or Lancaster. And I always associate it and say, like, hey, do you know where the Amish are? Or like, we were right by the Amish. Not as if they're only in one community, but that was a community that I lived by. About 20 minutes from York, Pennsylvania, but my dad commuted to Baltimore every day, so that was like 2 hour drive. So I always just say, we're right by Baltimore. Okay, so I was like, do you know where Baltimore is? And he laughed, and he's all, I lived there for like 4 years. I think that's what he said. And then I think we even, because he lived in multiple places, it's interesting that Illinois comes up so much in conversation with people, but they're usually like up north where they live. So I think Illinois got thrown in there, and I lived there for about 4 years, and that was about 20 minutes from St. Louis. So that little town, Fairview Heights, Belleville, met the nicest people there. It's just really humid. Okay, so second example of that, he has the same name as my dad. Okay, so same name as my dad, knew where Baltimore was and had lived there, wanted a facial for 40 years. And then lastly, I'm not sure, we didn't really get into talking about my podcast, but I asked him, because one of my favorite shows that I love to talk about happens to involve Muhammad Ali. It's called Belief in Self, one of my first shows. And I asked him, I said, I laugh about it when I ask people this, because how could you not know Muhammad Ali? But I was like, so you know Muhammad Ali? And he's all, a little bit. And I was all, really? You know him? And he's all, yeah, a little bit. So I guess when he was in Florida, I don't remember exact details of basically that he got to meet Muhammad Ali when he was coming through town. And they would have conversations and stuff. So I believe it was more than once. And so I thought that was also kick-ass, because I was like, yeah, I interviewed one of my first shows, Belief in Self, one of Muhammad Ali's good buddies, Coach Chuck Hammond. That's one of my favorite shows, where he talks about his mom was one of the biggest influences in his life, and one of the most impactful things that she said was to him growing up is, if they can do it, so can you. And that helped boost his confidence, his self-esteem. And in school, she really helped push him. And it's one of my favorite shows. And so I have a lot of favorites, but that was one of the first ones in the beginning. So I just love that because of how it works out. That we interact with these people. It could be shortly, right? It could be just that moment in time. It could be something that ends up, somehow you end up, I don't know, like working or not with working with them, but you see them more. You would end up seeing them maybe more than once, or developing some sort of acquaintance relationship or whatever it is, right? I'd have to think of more examples for you people, but people coming into our lives for different reasons. Sometimes, though, it's literally just to show us things like that, that we are all connected. Your thoughts make things, and don't trip on your powers. Because I actually, if you asked me, did I go there that day and think that I was going to meet that person or like have thoughts or anything, feelings? I'm surprised I didn't either. So the answer is no. No, but I have had the thoughts of, I did have the thought right before I sat down that I was going to leave. I was going to leave the restaurant, and I was done, and I was like, oh, I didn't get a chance to talk to anybody. It's a part of my thing, wanting to go meet community. But I was like, I'm just going to go sit at the bar. And look at what happened. So those, if you want to say hidden messages or signs, I don't know. I just generally trust my gut when it just kind of things like that, kind of like the whole thing, like, oh, well, I should stop here and here on my way home, or I should go over on that side of town to wherever. And then sometimes when I just get started, like get into talking to somebody, even if it's for coffee, for tea, or food, there's some sort of hidden message there, right? That it really is, people, no matter if you're not a very spiritual person, there's always like I almost want to say it's kind of like hidden gifts where there's a divine, I'm sorry, I was going off from that, divine order. So that's why I can say there's no such thing as a coincidence, because I've seen what's happened throughout my life, that there is, I will say, a divine order. Okay. And I believe in consciousness and oneness and all of this, and just different stuff, if you haven't listened to me before, that I believe in. So I'm getting even more tired than I was, but I wanted to jump on here because I didn't want this to go and get lost in my notes of things I wanted to talk about. And I've only actually thought, I've only talked a couple of different times about creating your own reality, but I haven't had like tons of examples to give you. So I wanted to give you this one. And then the other things that you might think like are really kind of dumb examples, but I think they're simple things too that you can practice on yourself. So whenever I am asking for anything for myself or for others, always coming from love, and I create, this sensation in my body and mind using either a movie or music. It's usually a movie scene, or just, I've recommended music, movie, a happy moment in time specific to you, right? Not what you think others would be saying to be a happy moment. Just think of a happy moment. And so I use these to create the things that I want in my life, for the betterment of this myself and or people I know. And I do these sorts of things on a regular basis. And these regular things, you may laugh at it, but it's when you start practicing and you see and in your reality, the power of your thoughts, you're going to trip out initially. But it's become almost normal for me to be like, even if I were to say it's weird, I know it's not weird, it's normal. It's rad to keep saying. So say, for example, it's a funny example, okay? This doesn't really, or not funny, haha, funny, interesting when I say that. So there's potholes all over these roads that we live by or around, like huge ass that potholes that will fuck your shit up, and I had been thinking, like, I would either think, I wish they would fix these. Maybe one day they'll fix them. Wouldn't it be great if they fix them? So it was actually more of kind of like that sort of stuff, statements and questions. And they would be fixed, like, if not the next day, like within that week. And so that's the kind of stuff I'll do it with. If you've heard me talk before, yes, I've done it about like with shopping. I'm looking for something, right, and it appears, and things like that. And just how I've learned to live my life since my 20s, like always flipping negative things to positive. And I always, one of the first successes was always focusing on, finding a parking spot somewhere, or getting a person that's really kind at, in some customer service situation that I would have to deal with. And what else? Um, there's so many other things, people, but basically just practice and play around and see what you can create. I've also, if you want to call it just always putting out goodness, is that on the, I really have to write these down so that I could tell you, because I think most people would be kind of shocked. For example, let's just say that you ran like the light, right? Street light, traffic light. You run a red light, like say it switches too soon, right? Between the yellow and the red. And you realize that you did that, right? And you like get scared for a moment or fearful that you're going to get a ticket. I think you have to, there's some sort of time frame though in between that when it actually does. But since I never know, even when I have done that in the past, let's just say that I did that, right? Is that I would immediately say, like, I wouldn't always say, I'm sorry I did that, but I would feel bad that I did it. And instead of thinking that I'm going to get a ticket, I would just say, I learned my lesson. Like, please forgive me. I'm just giving an example. I might not say, please forgive me, but I learned my lesson. I won't do it again. I'll try harder next time, paying attention, whatever it was. So, thank you for not giving me a ticket. So I kind of started doing that and having that attitude of everything, even if I felt so, in terms of, like, just say, like making a mistake. I have just learned to develop this whole thing, like, I knew I fucked up. I knew I messed up on something, but I'm going to state what my lesson is, and to thank you, for keeping me safe, or whatever it is the thing is. I will start, I'm going to have to start a list, because I could give you so many other examples of different things of just how I live my life, and I do it in every facet. So, what should we do? Let's just say that's enough for tonight. I will get back to you in the next few days. And, or maybe hopefully tomorrow I'll have some things to say and give you some updates as well in the coming weeks regarding the veteran stuff. So I really hope I can get get a gig there, even once a month, speaking and basically talking about alternative wellness options outside of the box that don't even necessarily involve speaking. Don't have to. And that's about all, folks. I will talk to you in the next video, and thank you so much for listening. Okay, so have a good night. Bye.